Hi, welcome to Something Simple and Light with Tolu Alao. In this podcast, we talk about three key areas: process improvements, manufacturing excellence, data analytics, and visualization. The goal of this podcast is to discuss practical ways to improve your operations day in, day out. Wow, there's so much to cover in this episode, and I really hope that you pick one or two things that you can apply in your operations immediately. Fantastic. Let's jump into today's discussion. Welcome to today's episode of Simple and Light. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about quick changeovers. And I hope that so far you've been able to pick one or two things, as we've talked about value, we've talked about excess inventory last week, and now we're going to talk about changeover. So if you've not listened to previous episodes, I would like you to spend some time to listen to previous episodes so that you have a proper understanding what we've been talking about over this last few weeks. I'm again going to build on what we've said previously. All right, so what's quick changeover? And this is a term that you're going to hear so many times as we talk about process improvement, because again, this is something that is very, very important as you think about process improvements, manufacturing excellence, and operations excellence. Right. All right, so let's dive into what quick changeover is. Right, so quick changeover is the time it takes to change from the last good piece of a current material or product or service that you're producing to the first good piece of the next kind of product or piece that you're producing. Right, so remember, again, it's the time it takes from changing from the last good product, right, of a current piece or product or service to the first good piece or product or service of another product. Right, so let's go back to our food example. Right, so let's say that I run a process where I use the same equipment to make jollof rice and fried rice, and I want to switch. So I just finished making jollof rice, and I want to switch from jollof rice to fried rice. Right, so I need to finish my jollof rice, and then from the moment I produce that jollof rice till when I'm able to start producing my fried rice, then I've had some changeover. So I'm changing over from one particular product to another product, right? And so what typically happens in most manufacturing setups is that you have to change some equipment, change some piece, right? You might change some critical parts that is required to produce this new product that is different from the other product, right? So let me give you another example apart from food. So let's say you produce some form of beverage, right? So let's say you produce some form of beverage that uses chocolate, right? So you have chocolate, you have sugar, you have milk, and then it's the same production line that you use to produce that chocolate milk, right, that you also use to produce strawberry, right? So but let's say that strawberry requires an additional process, right? Maybe some form of pasteurization or something different that chocolate milk does not require. And so for strawberry, I would need to include that process. I would need to set that in that production line. So maybe I need to add an additional equipment, right? And so the concept of having changeovers is that you want to be able to utilize your equipment to produce both products, right? I want to be able to swing from this product to that product, and I don't want to have to keep excess inventory. Remember when we talked about excess inventory, one of the reasons why you have excess inventory is because you have very long changeover times, and so you end up producing more than what you need because you want to keep them for when that demand is needed, right? But with a quick changeover, right, you don't need to keep excess inventory because you have that flexibility to quickly change, right? So let's say in order to produce the strawberry milk, I have to set up the line, I have to add some additional equipment, I need to do some things that's going to take some time to do, right? And what we want to talk about today is ways in which you can reduce the changeover time and then maximize your line such that you're able to have flexibility, you're able to reduce your waste and all of that, right? And in a nutshell, that's really what changeover is about, right? And just like I've mentioned so far,
there are quite a lot of benefits to this, right? One of those benefits, like we mentioned, is reducing your excess inventory. So you're not producing more than what you actually need, right? Another benefit to having quick changeover, right, is that it increases your production flexibility. So you're able to, quickly move from one product to another product, right? You can swing, right, easily. And that means that, I can more or less plan effectively, right? Because I don't have to, keep trying to compensate for the long setup time. Another thing is that it reduces my lead time. So when I know that my changeover is going to take, 1 hour as opposed to having changeover of 6 hours, right? I know that my customers will not have to wait for so long. Right, I reduce the amount of time they have to wait before they get this product, even if I don't have it, on ground, right, on stock and all. And these are just some of the benefits, right, to having, quick changeover. So let's move to the next portion. How do we practically, have quick changeovers? What are the steps, right, that I can apply? Because again, what we're trying to do with this podcast is to give you practical ways where you can apply what you learn here in your operations, more or less immediately, right? And one of the first things you want to do is to observe your current changeover process, right? So if it means, doing a recording, having some interviews with the people who run these processes, right, these operations, what do you currently do? How do you currently change over? What are the steps required to change over, from one product to another product, or from one, setup to another setup, right? You want to have a sense of the baseline, right? What you're currently doing. And that's the first thing you want to do in terms of how you reduce or make your changeover faster, right? And quicker, right? The next thing you want to do, number two, is to distinguish between what is called internal and external activities. So let's try and understand, let's try and in detail explain what internal and external activities are, right? So internal activities are activities that are done when the machine is not running, right? They are activities that you more or less cannot do except the machine is down, right? So you need to stop the machine to do those activities. So for instance, if there are parts that you need to change that are rotating, right? So let me give you an instance. So if, for instance, you're trying to change the tires of the car, right? Like if you watch Formula One racing, where after a while they have to, quickly change those tires, because at those kind of speeds, right, on the tarmac, the tires will be burning the turns, right? So they need to be able to quickly change over and change those tires like after a period of time, right? So but you can't change those tires as far as the car is moving, right? The machine in this example now is the car. The tires cannot be removed, right, until the car comes to a halt. Like you have to completely stop the car, right? That's an activity that requires the machine to completely calm down, like to stop completely, right? And that's an example of an internal activity. So those are things that you need to stop the machine completely to do, right? And most times, it's because those things require the parts are rotating, they are moving, they are not things that from a safety point of view you can do while the machine is in operation, or things relating on electrical, right, or some form of motion, right? Those kind of things cannot be done except the equipment is down, right? So those are internal activities, while external activities are things that can be done while the machine is running, right? So for instance, trying to get the tools that you require, trying to get your manpower organized, all the materials that you need, the spare parts, every single thing, the paperwork can be done while the machine is running. And these are things that you can easily do. So those are what you call external activities, right? And what we're talking about is, in order to do quick changeovers, we need to understand what are the activities currently that we are doing while the machine is down, what are the activities we are doing while the machine is running, right? And then categorize them into the external and internal activities, right, for now, right? And so we move to the next point. What you want to do now is to push as many of those, internal activities to external activities. And what we're trying to say here is that you want to be able to push as many things that you do when the machine is down, right, to things that you do while the machine is running. So for instance, it doesn't make sense to be collecting spare parts, collecting tools after you have stopped the machine, right? Because this is time that could have been used to go right into changing over, right? So you want to be able to push as many of the paperwork, the documentation, the getting the tools, the staging of materials, and all of that while the machine is still producing the current products, right? Such that by the time the machine stops, right, for changeover, everything that is required to quickly, put in the new spare parts, put in the new thing, every single thing is already staged right in the right location, and then you can quickly do your changeover. And so the strategy is to push as many things from internal activities to external activities, right? It's very, very straightforward strategy, right? And then the next thing you want to do, number 4, is to now optimize your internal activities. So in my internal activities, are there things that I can do better? Are there things I can do more efficiently, do them faster, with proper training? What's the global practice like in doing those things? How can I reduce how long it takes me to do that internal activity, right? And then the next thing you also want to do is to optimize your external activities, right? So how long is it currently taking me, and how can I do them more efficiently, right? And then finally you want to document what you have done, this new way of working, and standardize this so that it becomes your new way of working, right? So let me just do a quick recap of what we've said so far on how to implement quick changeover. So first thing you want to do is to observe what you currently do, right? What's my current way of doing things? The next thing you want to do, number 2, is to categorize those activities that are internal and external, right? What you're currently doing. So which of them are you doing as external activities, which of them are you doing as internal activities? And then what you want to do now is to convert as many internal activities, right, to external activities. So I want to push as many things that I'm doing when the machine is down, right, to when the machine is running, so that once the machine is down, I'm not spending so much time, looking for spare parts, getting approvals, waiting for this, waiting for that, and all of that, right? So you want to be able to push as much of those, internal activities to external activities, right, where applicable. And then you now want to, optimize, right? You want to optimize both your internal and external activities, and then build a standard, right? I hope this has been, very clear in today's episode. And I have a simple task for you, right? Just look at your operations, look at your changeover process, and just like we've learned today, document and see how you're currently doing your changeover, and see how you can convert a lot of your internal activities to external activities, and just begin to see how much you're able to reduce the time you spend on changeover. All right, fantastic. I trust you've been able to pick something from today's episode, and I look forward to hearing about your success. For more content like this and to keep in touch, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Tolu Alao. You can also subscribe and follow me on YouTube, also at Tolu Alao. Until next time, just give me something simple and light.